Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to What's New, What's News. This is İskit, and good evening again. Today we will discuss the heated debate on Sharia law and secularism in Turkey, as recently prominent lawyer Feyza Altun was detained and released conditionally for insulting Sharia law on social media. Altun asserts Turkey is a secular state, not governed by Sharia law, and her arrest raised concerns over freedom of expression. So today I have a special guest joining us, Dr. Kerem Gülay, an expert in international law and constitutional studies. Dr. Gülay's impressive journey includes degrees from Istanbul University and Leiden University, with extensive research stints in the US and Germany. Let me invite him. Welcome, Dr. Kerem Gülay.
Hi, glad to join the broadcasting. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming and sparing your time with me. It's very important. So we will delve in some important topic today because all the heated discussions again about secularism and also Sharia law is on the board now, and Feyza Altun's case is only one example of this kind of situation. But I suppose this is the first time actually we are facing something about Sharia law that constitution actually the trial and the investigation is about basically Sharia law, and the alleged crime is about incitement and hatred against the public. So my first question is about what prompted Feyza Altun's investigation and subsequent detention regarding her social media comments on Sharia law.
Sure. So just to have the facts straight in the beginning, Ms. Altun has been accused of provoking public to hatred, hostility, or degrading. That's the translation of the Turkish Criminal Code. This is a translation provided by the Venice Commission. So this is Article 216, and we do indeed see in Turkey, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, a growing number of cases concerning inciting public to hatred. By the way, in the meantime, there was a change in the criminal code, so the provisions have changed. The application was slightly modified, but it is essentially this incitement to hatred clause, which is used, and if I may say so, perhaps overused in pressuring dissent. So Ms. Altun is accused of. I unfortunately I couldn't access the indictment yet, but it has been reported that it is indeed Article 216. This article that I mentioned, which he's accused of. This article, and you are correct, this article, to my knowledge, by the way, perhaps I should have a small explanatory note here. It is very difficult to prove a negative, almost impossible. So, of course, there might be some case that I have missed or I might have missed, but as far as to the best of my knowledge, there has been no case in which an individual has been indicted under Article 216 for insulting Sharia or insulting Islamic law. So this is unique because, in fact, the article if you see the drafting history of the article seems to be, I'll quote the wording if you allow me, a person who publicly provokes hatred or hostility, etc., etc., of the public against another section of the public, which has a different characteristic based on social class, race, religion, sect, or regional difference, which creates an explicit, a mistranslation, it says an explicit and imminent danger to public security, shall be sentenced to a penalty of imprisonment from 1 to 3 years. So as you see, this article is intended for against discrimination. This article is intended to shield minority against majority. This article is intended, and for those who are familiar, Turkey is a Muslim, Sunni Muslim majority and Sunni Hanafi Muslim majority country. So I do not think that this article was intended to apply this type of statements, but on the top of it, especially in the recent years, but it has been ongoing even before that. This article was used indeed for statements against Islam in general. Statements which are critical or derogatory of the Prophet Muhammad, statements which are derogatory of certain Islamic beliefs and practices. But it has so far, to my knowledge, again, never ever been used for a statement against Sharia. And the reason is, arguably, it's Article 2 of the Turkish Constitution, because there is a premise, there is a principle that all laws, including criminal laws, are to be interpreted in line with the Constitution. And the Turkish Constitution, famously in its Article 2, stipulates that Turkey is a laicite, it's a secular country. And that's why statements against Sharia, which is interpreted to be Islamic law, were not considered to be relevant for the application of Article 216. That is interesting. Perhaps, did I miss anything in your question? I hope I didn't.
No, you haven't missed anything. We will continue with another question. In what ways has Altun's case reignited discussions surrounding secularism in Turkey, and what are the key points of contention?
Sure. So this is a long point. It's not just a legal point. So I will go beyond my expertise as a lawyer, and I will dwell upon sort of general discussions in Turkish public, because I have to answer the question.
And also there is some political context involving this topic as well, right?
Precisely. So that's what I meant. So the timing of this case is very, very peculiar, because I didn't really follow the timeline when these things were happening. So I don't know if Feyza Altun's tweet predates Şevki Yılmaz's statement. But basically, there were a couple of days between, maybe on the same day or on the next day. A conservative former member of parliament, someone who actually whose statements were actually resulted in the closure of his political party back in 90s, Şevki Yılmaz, in a wedding of a member of an Ottoman dynastic family, their descendants, made statements against Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, secularism, and basically the core premises of the republic. So Feyza Altun's statements, I don't know if she said it afterwards. I think it should be read in this context, because suddenly, out of blue, this ultra-conservative, ultra-religious person made a statement. He's a political figure. He made a statement condemning secularism, condemning the expulsion of the Ottoman dynasty, etc. Made bizarre and annoying statements. And back in the day, those statements were prosecuted, by the way. Not today, not this time. There is no case filed against Mr. Yilmaz to our knowledge. So Feyza Altun's statements follow this, or they happened in the same context. So this sort of fed the debate between extremist secularism and extremist political Islamism in Turkey. They should be seen as, perhaps the other side of the coin. But I should note that the timing is even more interesting than just someone else making a counter statement. The timing, this just followed the landslide which happened in Erzincan last week, where a lot of miners were under the rubble, remain under the rubble. So this was a mining accident. Cyanide was used in gold mining, so there were environmental protests and so on and so forth. Of course, the license for that mine was given by the current candidate for mayor from AKP, Mr. Murat Kurum. So the public was discussing that, and suddenly over the course of the weekend, this secularism and versus radical Islam discussion erupted. So of course tensions were building up since quite some time now, but I don't think timing is coincidence. I think it serves a purpose to divert the attention, because whenever something materially important happens, we do always have these discussions of ideology in Turkey. And this is the foundational ideology for the Turkish Republic versus the foundational ideology of Islam, which is the Islamic law. So I think we should read this in the context of this larger debate.
Yeah, Şevki Yılmaz incident happened 2 days ago, and Feyza Altun's case happened on Monday. So they have only one day to another actually happened. So yes, your point is very important actually, because last week we had a disaster in Erzincan İliç with the mine accident, golden mine accident in Erzincan, and now, I mean, I don't like the conspiracy theory of those kind of agenda of Turkey, but on the other hand, I'm thinking the same way as you said. Unfortunately, this is the case.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but this is not conspiracy. It's just whenever, if we can follow any debate, any fierce debate in Turkish public, on material, on accidents, working conditions, labor, elections, and at some point, these relatively more material and meaningful discussions are always hijacked by ideologies. So and this is and I'm not saying that the people who sparked the debate had the intention to hijack but perhaps Turkish public's attention to the more material issues is more limited, as we have seen in the past. But these hot debates sort of keep coming back. They keep striking back, and I think they prevent a meaningful discussion. There is a lot to be discussed with respect to. I don't know if I'm. Perhaps this is your next question. I don't know, but I think it is worth noting that. How should I put this? It is worth noting that we do have very serious secularism issues, increasing pressure from political Islam in public space, on totally different levels than some ex-member of parliament saying something and then a lawyer is saying another. For example, Turkish middle school education and high school education is completely hijacked by an Islamist agenda. And
Exactly.
these are the issues that we should be talking about. But it's of course easier to sort of
Well, coming to that point, actually, we can talk about like women's right in Turkey, how the divorce debates now happening, especially divorce law. They're planning to change that one. They're planning to change the women's rights, like withdrawing the Istanbul Convention was the first step, but now we're discussing. 6284 article of the women's right as well for the domestic violence, etc. So these are very important points, and as all we can see, there are some slow but uh, sharp changes in Turkey over the last 20 years,
true,
I
true,
say. So
true. I mean,
sure.
please, please, please.
Please, you can speak, Dr. Kerem.
What I was thinking, so the Turkey's withdrawal from Istanbul Convention, which I believe is unconstitutional, by the way, uh, discussion for a different day.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, this is much into my field, so I'm very passionate about. The point is, every now and then we have these interventions from the ruling party, AKP, with these slightly provocative and significantly religious um, sort of policy initiatives, um, which sort of push us to a gradual decline in terms of the public space and the freedom in public space. So I think the Altun case is sort of a nail in the last nail in the coffin, if you will, in the free speech debate, because we have one article which is already being used very sort of conveniently for political oppression, for the
Mhm.
oppression of free speech. But at least people could criticize Sharia or Islamic law, which quite a significant chunk of Turkish population see as a threat. And I have seen excerpts from reporting about the Altun indictment,
Mhm.
and apparently the prosecutor picked up the Turkish language institutions dictionary for the interpretation of what Sharia is, and
Mhm.
the definition provides um, the ayat in the Holy Quran, and the Islamic law based on the teachings of Prophet Muhammad and the ayat in Quran, in the Holy Quran. So this is a definition. Quite honestly, it sounds like a very um, innocent definition, because Sharia is indeed Islamic law, but it's not just Islamic law in the sense of a legal order. It represents a particularly oppressive legal order in Turkey's legal history. And
Mhm.
if the prosecutor only dared to uh, Google search the meaning of not only Sharia but Şeriatçı, meaning the propagator of Sharia, then the definition is more grim, because
Mm.
that definition provides um, the person who who is pushing towards the essence of religion, not only in religious and conscious life, but
Mhm.
also in legal, economic, and political order. So
Mm.
someone who is basically, that definition says someone who is changing, who's inclined to changing the constitutional order, the free order, at least the nominally free order of Turkey, forcefully. So I think this is what Feyza Altun had in mind. Not
Exactly.
Sharia as a concept or as a law, but as an agenda, as a political agenda for oppression, for further oppression. We can talk about that, of course.
Yeah, having discussed the oppression, actually, my next question is about how do you view the balance between freedom of speech, as you mentioned, and
Yeah,
legal restrictions in cases like Altun's, because this is not the only case. I mean, this is the only case related to Sharia law, but
yeah,
with the Islamic views or, I mean, against Islamic belief or some sort of secular view, I would say. Nowadays, we are facing such cases like Feyza Altun's, and the way of doing it is just investigation, sorry, and then just file a new trial to against the normal people. I mean,
yeah.
not only for the prominent ones or the popular ones in Turkey,
Everyone.
everyone. So, what is
Yeah.
your view on that?
First, I don't think we can distinguish the general oppression on freedom and free speech in Turkey from, strictly speaking, an Islamist political agenda. They are the one and the same. But there have been, so this article has been used for critics of Islam, which could have been considered okay in a properly functioning uh, um, democratic society. But beyond this article, there are many articles in the Turkish criminal code which were originally intended to serve a totally different function, but which now serve uh, basically as a tool for oppression for either the ruling political class or the members of that class. And I'll give two examples. And there are so first, and this is rather well known. We don't know the exact number of cases, but I checked it, I think, a year ago and a year and a half ago. There's a specific clause in the Turkish criminal code which penalizes insulting the president,
Mm.
and the president is currently President Erdogan, so insulting the President Erdogan. And essentially, as far as I know, as far as I can recall, there have been 28,000 investigations.
20,000 investigation.
28,000 investigations for insulting the president over social media. These are, and these cover real insults, which could be investigated. But personally, I don't know why a president would care about people insulting him. You're a politician, get over it. But these also include very minor, very innocent critiques of the president. And I know this for a fact because I was also investigated, and a case was filed against me for, and this wasn't even for my own commentary on social media. This was for basically, I think, retweeting, or was it maybe Facebook sharing an article from a foreign newspaper. I think it was the Daily Sun from UK. I mean, if I was guilty for anything, I'm guilty for sharing or tweeting Daily Sun, but not more. Uh, it was. So I was prosecuted for it, and I appeared before a criminal court. I was, of course, it was a mistranslation, by the way. The case was dropped. But I was tried with 2 to 4 years in prison for
Hey.
sharing some newspaper article. And in fact, actually, my comment was, I think this could have been one of the few positive comments about the president, because I was criticizing the newspaper article, which was rather derogatory when they were speaking about Turkey. So and some police officers probably Google translated it, and back in the day, Google Translate wasn't so effective for Turkish. So I think this was a mistake, but again, I was one of those 28,000 cases. So this is one example. It's rather very common, and there are prison sentences. There are investigations concerning children who are like 15 years old. This has become absurd for pressuring free speech. So this is my first example. My second example is different. Since this clause only pertains to the president, so it cannot be applied to sort of protect other politicians affiliated with the AKP. However, there are provisions regarding insults, and those provisions are excessively used by members of parliament, former members of parliament, former politicians, bureaucrats affiliated with the AKP. And I know this, we don't know the number of cases, but with respect to some politicians or former politicians, we are talking in the ballpark of hundreds of cases, insult cases filed by politicians against individuals. For this, they hire a law firm. They say, well, go after this individual for this social media commentary, threaten them with for settlement, for negotiation, ask them to pay such and such amount of money, and if they don't pay, tell them that you are not going to settle, and then they have to go to a criminal court. The criminal court in these cases can theoretically impose a prison sentence, and sometimes they do. So, with the threat of regarding their deprivation of freedom, people feel obliged to settle, and they pay compensation to these former politicians or politicians who feel insulted. I also know this for a fact because my mother has been recently had such a case. There is a former, I don't remember if this person was a member of parliament, but she was a politician. Allegedly, she received funds rather dubiously from Istanbul municipality. And then this person actually went to the United States to pursue a PhD, fully sponsored by certain interest groups. Then she came back. She served maybe as an MP, maybe as an ambassador. I don't remember that very well. But when this scandal erupted about this public funds being used to sponsor to extreme levels to this individual, people were criticizing her on the social media, and my mother did that too. And she also faced a prison sentence. Now, of course,
hopefully she didn't convict it, right?
she was we are challenging the decision. We are pending the application. It's a very minor sentence. The court was actually thought we were right on many accounts except one. So we had like 6 challenges, and 5 of them were accepted. One of them was settled jurisprudence, but there's a misinterpretation. So we are challenging that too. And I'm optimistic because this is an absurd case. My mom is a retired person. She's just very sensitive about public matters, and if you are a member of parliament, I mean, if it was possible to bypass Turkish legal process and appear before the European Court of Human Rights, for instance, there is no way the court wouldn't find Turkey be in a violation for a commentary like the one posted by my mom. I mean, it's not even clear if if she meant it against that person or if she meant it for people who do public embezzlement. The language is not clear.
Mhm.
And anyway, politicians must be more tolerant, and this is also the European Court of Human Rights settled jurisprudence. So in a democratic society, politicians are to be criticized, and I personally believe, even this is not the court saying, but even in some cases, harsh critiques, borderlining insults might be okay because of the functions they serve. People are when things do not go well, people are upset with politicians, and that's the price. That's the price politicians have to pay. Yeah, but instead, and I can perhaps share another number. The day my mother actually went for a police testimony, it's a different process. There were 6 people or 7 people who were there for the same reason for cases filed by this very same politician. So one politician is abusing Turkish courts for
Mhm.
filing these enormous number of cases against individuals, maybe several hundred cases, um, to get compensation, and then the lawyers probably get the compensation, and I don't know. This is pressuring dissent, and there is no other way that these people can express political opinion except social media. So at least they could the court should be more tolerant for that.
Yes. Well, this is like letting people to be scared of making any comments, sharing their thoughts. Even we mentioned that we are a democratic country. Everyone is free to share their opinion. However, it's not working like that. We are seeing many cases of journalists as well. Even they are journalists and they are serving for public to share information. Even they retweet something, they can even go to jail. So this is the
True.
reality of Turkey now.
They did. I mean, Barış Terkoğlu, etc. All they spent quite a lot of time in jail
Sedef
for
Kabaş is
yeah.
another example. Even she wasn't convicted when they sent her to prison for 49
True.
days.
True.
And we didn't, I don't remember, please correct me if I'm wrong, but with Sedef Kabaş case, actually, there wasn't any kind of situation that she should be in jail because of
I
the
think I don't remember the case
accusation.
very well, but I think procedurally. So the thing is, arrest pre-trial detention is legally an exceptional measure,
Mhm,
which is only to be exercised if the suspect is a potential flight risk
mhm,
or if the suspect is capable of hiding or destroying evidence. So this is absurd. If you are prosecuting someone for social media commentary or for something they did in a said in a TV show, how can they corrupt evidence? It's already out there, and if how can they flee? You can have temporary flight bans for pre-trial detention instead of pre-trial detention, and these people cannot flee the country, so they can face prosecution if the intent would have been a fair trial, and it should be
mhm.
a fair trial. This is the legal process that they had to follow, but that's not the legal process. So that's not what they do. So
This
my,
is
I think if anything, I should say that these um, this pressure on free speech cannot be isolated from the collapse of the Turkish judicial system, which I can talk hours and hours about. And alternatively, it cannot be disassociated from general corruption in Turkish government. I don't mean government by the ruling party or anything, in all branches of government.
Mhm.
So if you permit me, I want to sort of I want to read the numbers,
Sure.
if possible. So
Please
this
do.
is the Freedom House, Freedom in the World Index. So overall, Turkey's score is 32 out of 100. Political rights, 16 out of 40, so below average. Civil liberties, 16 out of 60. On average, Turkey, by the Freedom House, is not considered free. So it said not free.
Mhm.
Comparatively, this is so this is corruption perception index. By the way, Turkey wasn't essentially the index wasn't so bad. It gradually became bad. So now I'll tell you the corruption perception index. Again, this doesn't really quantify corruption as such, but the perception of corruption in a way.
Mhm.
But it's a very robust study. And in the corruption perception index in 2023, Turkey is ranked, be prepared for it, 115 out of 180. So it's it's worse than, significantly worse than average. 2023 score of Turkey is 34 out of 100. So if this was a student in my class, the student would fail the class. And the corruption rank in Turkey is in gradual decline since AKP came to power. In 2000, Turkey ranked 50th. In 2005, Turkey ranked 65th. In 2010, there was a slight upward trend, 59. 2015, back to 66. Now, ready. 2020, rank 86. 2021, 96. 2022, 101. 2023, 115. So in the
So these are the
basic,
percentages, right?
no, these are the ranks among all nations. Among 180, 190 nations,
I see. I
Turkey
see.
is ranked 115. In the last 4 years, Turkey's corruption, Turkey actually sort of dropped 30 spots in the corruption index. So
Okay.
from a relatively corrupt country, it became a very corrupt country. And this is interesting because the Minister of Justice, at some point several months ago, said something like, in this index, Turkey is ranked below Angola or something. This is
Mhm.
impossible. This is interesting because it shows not only a denial of reality, but it also shows this sense of, in effect, how should I put it? This sense of self, what's the word? Self-aggrandizement, I think that's the word. So
Mhm.
they apparently the person making this statement, a Turkish public official, a senior minister, believes that Turkey is inherently superior to all other countries and it cannot be worse than Angola. But that's not what the numbers tells us.
Well, well, this is a huge research, and I'm sure it's. I mean, it was uh, funded like it funds and sources are vital as well. So these are the numbers. We can see the bigger picture with that one, and it is very sad to see that,
It is.
especially considering our country, it's not a good reputation for us when we compare
True.
with other
True. And this affects
countries.
everything. This affects everything. This affects us, ordinary people. This affects potential investment coming to Turkey. So there is nothing good about this,
No.
except perhaps for the people who are corrupt and who benefit from the system somehow. There is, I mean, there are more metrics which we can look at. Um, But perhaps this will sort of this is a different discussion to have.
Evet,
So I'll shut up.
this is kind of, oh, please. Yeah, this is kind of a different discussion, and I really want to discuss this with you for the next time as well.
Anytime.
But coming back to our main subject, actually, uh, I have another question. This is a little bit important for me as well. How might Altun's case influence future discussions and policy decisions regarding the status of secularism within Turkish society and its legal system?
It depends on how the case will turn out. So the prosecutor, to our knowledge, best of our knowledge, is asking for a prison sentence. And Altun is represented by two fierce lawyers, so they are gonna put up a fight. And even if alone, I think Altun will put up a fight. So I think if unless the case is immediately dismissed, this will turn into a show trial, and I think this will be used by seculars and political Islamists alike, by both parties, I mean. So this sends a strong signal to the political Islamist fractions in the Turkish society that this is a different Turkey now. So you can start. By the way, perhaps I forgot to mention this, but some time ago, in a Turkish courthouse, some people actually walked out by calling for Sharia. So I think Altun's response should also be read in this context. So the Sharia discussions is pushed to our agenda. Moreover, I also forgot to mention that 20 years ago, it was inconceivable to have Sharia law. It's Sharia law is an incorrect term. Sharia or Islamic law. It was impossible to consider Islamic law in the curriculum of Turkish law schools. But now some law schools have it in the curriculum. So as an elective course, as a legal history course, but before it was inconceivable because it was considered to violate the core premise, which is secularism, the laicism of the republic. Apparently, that's not the case now. It is not in elite law schools yet, or even if in elite law schools, it is more an intellectual study of Islamic law, which is, I think, worthy, not a political propaganda tool. But we are there, so we do have that course. So I think this is the most lawyers, most secular lawyers at least, feel a certain bitterness about this, because there is the understanding that this goes against all the legal premises we know, because Turkish legal tradition is very strong from its roots in the adoption of the Swiss Civil Code and the ensuing reforms, and it's well rooted. So this goes against everything that lawyers work for quite some time. Of course, I'm not sort of trying to represent all lawyers in one color. There are, of course, very conservative lawyers with an agenda, with a political Islamist agenda, who want to go for it. So the way I think the case moves forward will impact those discussions. And I think the more the prosecutor pushes with the case, there will be a stronger public reaction against this political agenda, and which is likely to lead further crackdown, because people will probably tweet or say the same thing that Altun said, and then there has to be more cases. The problem is, if the court process, the trust in the court process is almost gone, Ceren Hanım, because I'm sure you were familiar with the recent cases of Can Atalay. So
Yes.
basically, the Turkish High Court of
Supreme
Appeals,
Court.
Turkish High Court of Appeals rejected the decision of the Turkish Constitutional Court, which is the Supreme Court equivalent of Turkey, couple of times, not just one time. So there is the question that what happens if the courts do not follow the law? What happens if the courts do not follow the decisions of the superior courts? Because that's how the judicial hierarchy is structured. But now the members of the Constitutional Court are changing soon. So I think the political Islamist agenda can sort of go around this problem by appointing more sympathetic members to their cause. But I think the more the crackdown, the more public reaction the government will face. People do not really want to live in a. Except I think there was a survey a couple of months back. I think this even goes for most AKP supporters. The fraction of Turkish public who is okay with the application of Islamic law in Turkey is like maybe 5%, nothing. There will be, of course, a stronger, more conservative, more Islamist, but I think at least in principle, the secularism has to be respected.
Yeah, because as you mentioned before, Article 2 is very clear, isn't it, with the secularism in Turkey? So
It is.
Turkey is
It is.
Yeah, Turkey is a secular country, and nobody can change it. If briefly, if I said it correctly, but this is the case now. So we're coming to an end now. I have one more question for you, because I think this is important to see an angle from international perspective as well, because Turkey is handling different cases involving freedom of expression and secularism. Not only those, actually, when we see Kavala''s case, the Demirtaş case, many politicians are in jail as well. So that sort of cases we can give more example, align with broader human rights standards, and what you see about the legal forms about that as well.
So, just to clarify, if I understand your question
Sure.
correctly, the way I see it, the way I see it, it is a question about if Turkey's human rights records in general are comparable to best practices all over the world.
Exactly.
So this depends on how do you define best practices. I define best practices for free speech. Perhaps not. I mean, perhaps China is not a great example. Perhaps Russia is not a great example. But we do have some great examples like United States, like Germany. Germany is comparatively more fierce because they have these defamation laws, which is, I think, a relic from the Nazi times, but that's another story for another day. All countries exercise some level of discretion, some margin of appreciation in regulating free speech. But the internationally accepted standard, both by treaty law, such as European Convention on Human Rights or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the standard is limiting free speech only if it is against the personal rights of the other people, or if it incites violence. So if there is defamation, serious defamation, and if insults, or if, but some countries even don't have this insults regulation. And if it is likely to cause, how should I put it, incitement to public violence. So if someone calls for a rebellion, an armed uprising, that free speech can be regulated. And people can look this up in Guide on Article 10, Freedom of Expression. This is a document. I can share this document on YouTube later as a comment.
That would be wonderful.
So this is Guide to Article 10, Freedom of Expression. So generally speaking, the European Court of Human Rights has a 3-step analysis to decide if an interference with free speech is lawful. So first, the interference must be prescribed by law, so lawfulness, legitimacy, and this involves proportionality and so on. And then the necessity in a democratic society. So essentially, do we need extremely draconic, extremely not draconic, the draconian insult law in the Turkish criminal law to make sure that public order is secured? I think the answer is no. Most countries in Europe answer this in negatively. So most of them do not have such draconian free speech laws. And in fact, and I don't recall the case law, even insults against presidents are generally permissible if the insult is directed at the president of the person's own country. So let's say if, I think this was a case from Austria, I don't recall very well. If an Austrian citizen insults the Austrian president, this is permissible. If, however, the insult is directed at the French president, this can be regulated, the European Court of Human Rights says, because this might actually damage the country's international reputation. But against that background, Turkey has roughly 30,000 cases, if it didn't increase in the last 2 years, alone for insults against Erdogan. And in fact, I'm actually going to ask this to Cimer to get exact numbers of how many people have been investigated with this. This is a serious free speech issue. But again, Turkey's human rights records cannot be seen in isolation, only an issue of free speech. There are mass arrests, mass violations of the right to fair trial, which has been continuously confirmed by the European Court of Human Rights and by other United Nations bodies, such as the body concerning the Committee for Arbitrary Detentions. And this is in continuous decline. The problem is cases such as Feyza Altun's or other sort of big public statements and made by big public figures. Those are discussed by journalists and political scientists strictly from a political science and public debate perspective. But the legal issue is not handled by journalists or political scientists. Perhaps this can be because of a lack of expertise. Then the question we should be asking is, why are the lawyers silent? Turkish lawyers are putting up a good struggle in courtrooms, but the communication of the issues internationally is lacking far behind. There are a handful of people who voice these opinions in massive scale. And this is a problem because it's not the free speech which is at stake here. It's the entire system of governance. I'll stop by giving one more number,
Sure.
if I can.
Please.
In 2016, right after the attempted coup d'etat, roughly one in every 3 judges and prosecutors were dismissed and or arrested. The reasons regarding the terrorist affiliations might be true or untrue. Recently, Danıştay actually decided that at least 400 of them had to be restored to their reputation and to their posts. But we were familiar, to be honest, with some strange involvements by those judges and prosecutors. That was a very well-known fact, also decided by several UN committees. The issue is, how can a country keep its judicial system running professionally when suddenly, just a few years ago, it lost 1/3 of its judiciary? I am not reading a conspiracy theory in this. I'm not blaming people for sort of being on one side or the other. Statistically speaking, more materially speaking, it is impossible to have an effective judiciary overnight. You need expertise. You need to build expertise in time, not just trained in Turkish law, but also trained in international law, judicial practice, judicial ethics, and all sorts of things to have a functioning judiciary. And if you lose 1/3 of it, how do you replace it? How do you replenish the numbers? Turkish law schools are, I think, 5,000 people graduate every year. Most of the people, most of the students want to go for private practice because that's what they believe, where they will make a decent living. Whether or not this is the case is a different question. However, very fewer people from elite law schools, in fact, decide to be a judge. And this is partially because you cannot be a judge because of this corruption perception that only people from certain sects, certain beliefs, certain cliques can get into the judicial internship system. So the whole mess is a snake feeding on itself. It's feeding. The corruption is feeding judicial collapse. Judicial collapse is feeding political oppression. Political oppression is feeding corruption. It's a massive mess that can only be dealt with by serious reforms. And the current reforms that are discussed in the Turkish parliament are far from it, unfortunately.
Right. From your end, it is a very dark frame of Turkey that we are talking about, unfortunately, but this is the reality. Is there anything else you would like to share with us?
I spoke too much, so I apologize. I think, yeah, I realize that I rather painted a grim picture of Turkey and the future of the judicial system. But as Gandalf says, there's always hope. So this is what I tell to my students, perhaps with the aspiration to be their Gandalf, because we do have extremely smart and hardworking lawyers. I'm fortunate to be an instructor to several hundred of them, and if provided that there will be no political or religious interference, I think the system has still enough to heal itself. But this cannot be done by the members of the current establishment. And I don't mean the political establishment, by the judicial establishment. That said, we still do have good judges in the administrative courts. We still have good judges in criminal courts, in civil courts. So what I say is not against all members of the judiciary, but those who are in control, who seem to be in control, and forming cliques. That goes against everything that the legal profession stands for. So, yeah, we have to be careful and hopeful.
Hopefully, and in the coming days, we will see the Constitutional Court's president will be very, very important with the coming decisions or whatever convictions, whatever they decide. Actually, hopefully, someone who is fairly judged everything and everyone. So this is what we are hoping for. Hopefully, it will happen.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thank you very much for sparing time with me and coming
Anytime.
here sharing your thoughts, insights with us. We had a really
Thank you.
good discussion today, and thank you very much,
My
Dr.
pleasure.
Kerem Gülay.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And
You're
anytime
welcome.
in the future,
Hopefully,
I'll
this is only the beginning. Probably we will have more
hope so. And
subjects to discuss.
yeah, it's a. By the way, just have to say this. I watched the interviews, your interviews. It's a great channel. I'm hopeful, and it will have a great future. So good luck with
Thank you
the
very much.
channel.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, we had a long discussion because the topic is very sensitive, and we're still discussing about the secularism. Hopefully, it will come to an end, and hopefully, a fair trial for Feyza Altun and other individuals will happen. Uh, for this week, we finished our YouTube lives. Hopefully, next week will different subjects we will discuss. Please follow me, subscribe me, and do not forget to like and add your comments on my videos. Till then, take care and see you next week. Have a lovely weekend.